Alright guys, welcome back to, I think this is my second book review, my second official book review, and this is my book review, or like my wrap up of books from the month of June. And I feel like essentially I'm reaching a point where I probably average like 4 or 5 books a month. And I feel like in the fall and winter I read a lot more, but it is what it is right now. So I'm going to start with The Serpent, The Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is a trilogy, I think. So I think there's 3 books to this series, and I enjoyed this book a lot. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5, and my ratings are pretty harsh. I feel like I would give it like a 3.8. It's almost 4 for me, but not quite, only because of the ending. I can't stand when the last like 20 pages, whole plot is just like thrown out the door and crazy shit's happening and you're like, huh? But the whole book itself is really good, and it did make me want to read book 2, which I'll give it credit for that because I have a few books here that I DNF'd 2 books and finished 2 books, and I pushed through the books that I ended up DNFing. But I really liked the character development. I feel like when you write about like a cold-hearted like FMC, and they're a little bit tough to open up, and they're just like strong, like they're not as strong as the others, but they're strong by their own right, and they're like the underdog. It's trials, how they got together. It was like they got close through proximity. It's kingdoms, fallen empires, vampires. I love a good vampire book. It's like vampires in the mortal realm, and the trials are so well written. It was so good. Like, I read this book pretty fast, actually. I think I read it in like 4 or 5 days. Fast for me, through finishing a book, given everything else I do in my life, is when I can finish the book within 3 to 5 days. Like, inside of a week. And I finished this inside of a week. And I do want to read book 2 just to like know what happens, because the ending made me nervous. The ending made me feel like the ending was just weird, but I kind of want to see how it plays out. So like it definitely left enough curiosity for me to like continue the series, and I trust that it'll be good. I feel like it'll be good. Like it'll make sense, pull it together, whatever. So this was a successful read for me. And then the other book that was a successful read for me, and a surprise read, not on my TBR, a random pickup. Like, I randomly picked this book up at Books A Million because it was 50% off. Like, sometimes I'm like, flip through it. I'm like, oh, interesting. And it has the pretty pages. I love, like, the painted, like, edges of books. And it was hardcover. So, I mean, 50%, it's like a normal paperback price. The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. And this was a surprisingly good read. I liked it, actually. There was a little bit of plot holes. Like, there was a few moments that I was kind of like, what's happening? But it wasn't enough to take me out of like the immersiveness of the world. The plot's really good. Oh, my main complaint is that, so chapter by chapter it changes perspectives, but it doesn't say whose perspective it is when you're changing it, and you kind of just have to figure it out. And I'll be like, who am I right now? Because it happened frequently. You change between 3-4 people, and you're like, huh? You're like, what is this? Whose perspective am I like reading from right now? And my other thing that I don't like, and it's common now, it's like more common now than before. I miss when chapters were like actual chapters. Like, chapters used to be like 75 pages. This book has a chapter every like 2, 3, 4 pages. Like, I think the longest chapter was like 5 pages. And I just don't understand that style of like writing chapters in books. I don't hate it. I mean, it was just like, damn, there's like a lot of chapters in here. I don't quite get it. I don't quite understand. And then the POVs would change, and I didn't know whose POV I was reading for a second. And like, it's pretty clear when it's the main girl, but like, it would switch, and I was like, who? I was like, actually, I lied. It might be like 6 people's POVs you kind of get a glimpse into, and it's just weird. And I don't know, a little unnecessary. So like, there's too much POV switching, but like, it doesn't take away that far from the plot. And low-key, this could have been a standalone, the way it was written and even the way it finished. But there's like a whole chunk of plot that I'm assuming happens in book 2. So I actually think I will read book 2 of this series. That was just my main complaint. I think my complaints were more like book setup than it was plot. Plot was good. Romance was kind of, it's not the best. It's not the best romance I've ever read. But you know, it's still cute. Like, it's still enough to be like a little bit cutesy and stuff. But oh yeah, I forgot to kind of go over like romance in this book. This is steamy. This was good. This is intense. The romance in here was kind of intense. I felt intense. I was reading this because I'm like, it's intense. It was good. Okay, that's all I'm gonna like give, because I don't do spoilers. This is a spoiler-free review. The romance in here is, it takes a while. It takes a while to build up. And then okay, wait. I remember now, because it's been a while. I remember thinking the romance in this book was a little abrupt. And thinking like, huh? That was like an abrupt transition into, like, there wasn't real levels of like yearning in it. So, and spice level. Because once they get together, they start skipping over the spice. Like, it's just happening. And I don't know. I feel like they could have waited a little bit longer to get together in this book. But it's still good. It's still good because you know the part in the romance where there's always that part in the plot where they're like, oh my god, initial like honeymoon, and then something truth comes out. Secrets. There's a lot of secrets. There's a lot that makes you like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? It's good. It's good. It's not like my favorite thing ever, but it's good. Like, it's readable. Like, it's digestible. And then I DNF'd when The Night is Defying. I read the first book all the way through, and in the first book I even found that there were plot holes. And then the ending wrapped everything up in a way that made the book better versus like confusing, but it was still kind of confusing. And I started this, and it's like things are happening, but it's kind of boring. That's all I really like. I'm only 125 pages in. Like, it's bad if I can't even get to the halfway mark. And I don't think it's a bad book. It just drags. It's just kind of boring. I'm a little confused by certain parts of the plot. But there were things happening that was getting interesting. So I definitely might come back to this book. You know, like when you have fresh eyes and you can feel like you can like pick up and like get over the hump of the drag, and hopefully it picks up and it gets better. It's kind of all over the place. I'll be so real. There's like flashbacks, there's power development, and there's other kingdoms. It's an intriguing plot. It's not bad. It's like, it has potential. And the reviews I read was that this book makes the first book look like 2 different authors wrote it. So I'm like, okay, like maybe I'll get back into this book, but I just got tired of trying. Life is too short. Like, I've actually only DNF'd 3 books in the last few years of all the books I've read. So, or no, I lied. 4 series. But like, you know, I just feel like I can come back to this. I just couldn't. I was dragging. I'm starting to learn when I can't grasp something, when my energy's not excited. And obviously not every single book has to be like peak perfect. Like I said, I'll use this book as an example. It wasn't perfect, but it was readable. Like, it was readable, and it progressed the plot enough that I was like, okay, shit's happening, keeps going. Cool. But like, I just 125 pages in, the beginning was good, and then the plot is just dragged so early on, but maybe it'll pick back up. And so when I come back to this book, it's like, maybe I'll give an updated review. I will let you guys know. Also, really quick, I've started making golden milk again, because I'm not gonna lie, I've had a little bit of some stress, and I think I mentioned that in a previous video, but golden milk is like a blanket to the nervous system, and it's just, oh, so great. I've been using soy, vanilla milk, and I don't measure out spices. I'm just like turmeric, a lot of turmeric, black pepper, ginger, a lot of ginger, and then cinnamon, and a little sweetener. I'll add a dabble of monk fruit in there, and I actually added like a shot of coffee. It's instant coffee that we have these tiny mugs that we make it in, and it looks like an espresso shot, but it's just like regular coffee. So my camera cut off. I think it ran out of space, and I had to go through and clear out space on my phone, and then I had to go meet with somebody at our local co-op because I'm going to start offering yoga. Anyways, getting back to it, I know I was talking about golden milk, and that kind of probably just fell off, whatever. I got all of the other books, but this was the one. This is like a big review because there was so much hype around this book. I DNF'd it because, and I made it. I pushed. I halfway through the book. Nothing was happening for the first, the beginning started off so promising. Action-packed. I was like, oh shit, badass, cool powers, badass FMC lit. Like, I was hype about it. And I kept reading. I was like, okay, there's like all these little components and details in it. And I was like, okay, like, cool. Hopefully that all like starts to make sense, tie in together. To a certain point, it stops being good. It stops making sense. And then it's dragging and nothing's happening. And the plot falls off in places. And it takes you out of the immersion. And so I just felt like this. And the writing is awful. I'm sorry. I have like a pretty basic fundamental understanding of literature because that was going to be my major, like had I stayed in college. But like, you know, I've edited essays and papers and shit like that for like other people, and there's a style, there is a way of writing that is just good. And I'm not even talking about the plot in general, but the writing style. It's a fantasy, and in the fantasy genre, it's meant to immerse you and take you into another world, and that's why world building is a big deal, character development, powers, the system, all of that. And it has a good concept in here. That is what I'm impressed I even made it this far, like, into the book. I started skimming, but like, you can't even skim when the writing itself isn't making sense, the descriptions are off. And I love poetry, so I can handle poetic writing. And it's not the writing, like, I have books that have been beautifully written, and they are poetic styled, and they're very philosophical, blah, 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 blah. So it's not that I can't handle poetic writing. I love that writing style, actually. But this, honestly, to some degree, this book kind of is like a little bit has like poetic writing style in it. I like the style, and I get the appeal, especially in fantasy, where you're describing a world that is unlike any other realm, you know. It has to be a little bit romanticized and poetic, but it drops off and picks up at random places. Nothing's been happening for 150 pages, and I mean absolutely nothing. Like, nothing has been happening. I don't even understand what's happening, why happening. And then, just on top of the writing and the plot itself, it's even worse that the FMC is just annoying as fuck. And the writing for the FMC is, like, insane. Cursing, a little bit of cursing in some books, but how many times do you need to say fuck in a paragraph? It's weird. And like, maybe one day I will, like, after reading a couple books and refreshing my energy off this book, I'll come back and maybe I'll read the second half, because it's, like, in a sense, it's easy to read in, like, I don't know if this will make sense or not, But I'm using this as an example. Like, you know, this style of writing where the text, there's like a lot more text on the page. In this book, there is like not as much text on the page, I feel like. So I can read the pages in this book faster. It's just, it's so bad when I can't even skim and I don't even know what's going on because the descriptions don't make sense and the plot is boring and it's dragging, and I was so excited and then it tanked and my energy on this book fell off. And it's so hyped up, and in my opinion it's overhyped, but also I guess reading is subjective or whatever. I read books that other people I guess don't like, but you know, I guess the From Blood and Ash series is popular enough that it's getting its own like TV adaptation too, so this was a flop, and it was on my TBR, and it happens. I just think life is too short to force yourself to read something that you're not enjoying. This is just a hobby for me. I just read, part of my routine. It's a hobby. I love reading. It makes me feel inspired in my own, when I write stuff or whatever. But like, I'm not getting paid for this, so you're not gonna force me to finish a book I'm not enjoying. Like I said, I might come back and finish this book because I've heard it gets better, and I have pushed through worse. I just was stuck on it for like, again, 2 weeks is like a long time for me to be stuck on a book. I read 125 pages in this book in like 2 weeks. That's bad. And I can tell when I really like a book because even this one, it's not perfect. It's not like the peak of all books, but I still read this in 5 days. Who is safe to follow because I'm learning I have different reading styles from some of the even really big like book talk influencers online. I'm just gonna start doing kind of my own digging on books and research. And I literally picked up From Blood and Ash on a whim. The cover was pretty and I liked it, and it paid off because I have From Blood and Ash, the Flesh and Fire series, and I think I actually will get into book 6, which I've heard mixed reviews on. But the other thing about book reviews is that this is like a no spoiler book review, and of course it's like if you still want to read the book yourself and experience it for yourself, go do that. But if you have literary standards, I'm sorry, this isn't it. And I don't mind that it has its own terminology for like the days and seasons and moon phases, whatever, all of that. I don't care about when a world has its own terminology because it really puts you more into that fantasy world itself of like, okay, like we're not even on the timeline of Earth. We're like on this timeline. It's really cool concept. That's why this was so hard for me to like put down, to DNF it, because I was like, I really want this to get better. I've seen people DNF it for less. I made it halfway through. I give myself that, and halfway through was still 324 pages. This book does not need to be 700 pages. It does not. I actually have seen where a lot of people did not enjoy the book. So tell me what you guys have thought of, if you've read any of these books, or what you thought of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. And I am starting Zodiac Academy. Like, I DNF'd this book after 2 weeks, and now I am on Zodiac Academy, which I'm really into. I can't wait to have a reading session with this book later on because the plot, I'm like wrapped up in it. I include this book review, my June wrap up with these 4 books, and I'm starting off my July with Zodiac Academy. And I kind of already have a little lineup for this month of books. I will catch you guys in my next video. Until next time, bye!